turn on the light.
Let's see, it says starting live video. Hello,
Woohoo!
everyone. Let's see. Hello, everyone. I think we are live now. This is Gardening Tips Live, and I am Amy Hahn, and I'm joined by my friends and fellow master gardeners, Lee Cheek, Toby Johnson, and Margot Emery. And we are here to talk about gardening. Some of the things we're going to talk about today are, just what our garden. I took some pictures of what my garden looks like right now. Not much of a show. And um, what is it? I think there's a way that I can let the other folks see these things easier, but I can't figure it out right now. So I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so did someone find the post in the group yet? Because I know that takes a bit. And has it been pinned to the top of featured for us? So to help folks find us. And
I
so
see us and Lee sees us,
you see us.
and I'm pinning
Okay.
us to featured.
Awesome. So that folks can find us. And so, and I'm going to go into the post, and folks have asked us to do at everyone so they get notifications that we're live, and might be a little bit crazier with us only doing once a month. I mean, twice a month. So people might have a little bit harder time finding us. So if
So
you are
we're doing it the second and fourth Saturday of every month.
right, you got it. And I'm not seeing the comments in here. There, I'm seeing them. I have to hit that little refresh button. Ah, figuring out a new system is always fun. There, now I can see that. I'm trying to figure out the way that I can see the comments and see folks' faces. And I think I've got it. Got it figured out. Okay. Um, are you all ready to get started for this morning? We've had some really cold weather. Um, but at least it wasn't like, what is it, 2022 when it dropped 40 degrees in 8 hours and all the plants went into shock. Um, what is it? There were a lot of serious repercussions on plants from that. This was a little more mild of a season change, so I'm thankful for that. So I'm going to start with just something we did in our Master Gardener training class a couple weeks ago. Um, it's probably a little hard to tell, but this was a tulip.
You want to say welcome to Nancy? She's joining us.
Oh, welcome, Nancy. Glad you're with us. Um, I might see Nancy this afternoon. So that'll be interesting. But so these are the petals, here, and then you've got the anthers that have the pollen, and then this in the center is the female part of the plant where the seeds would form. So we just, do a little bit of learning about botany. And so if you're interested, our training class for this year has already started, but if you're interested in becoming a master gardener, we do training every year, January through April. And you can contact us about joining. Okay. Oh, it does require a 40-hour training class, and it is about volunteering and helping. And speaking of volunteers, this was at the House and Garden Show in their nonprofit fair area. And so we have volunteers at our tables, and we had some games for folks to come and play and learn about seeds and insects. Learn about vegetables and vegetable seed and insects, and we were giving away some seed packets. So this is where our table was. And so one end was the games, and the other end was all sorts of different handouts that people could pick up and just talk to us. And so we talked to a lot of folks. on those 3 days. And, for the future, the nonprofit fair is free for everyone. And so you can just go. If you want to go down to the main show floor, it is downstairs in the Convention Center. And there is a charge for getting in there. But they do that every February. And now to some plants. Okay, these are my parsley plants that were outside. I did pull them against the house because they're in containers, and I did lightly cover them. So you can see in the center here, there's still some life, but the outer branches are looking very rough, the outer stems. And so I'm not going to be harvesting parsley from this. But as we move into spring, I'm going to get a really nice crop of parsley from these plants, and then they will go to seed. And so pretty soon I will be starting seed for new plants, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Another thing that was in my containers, this is Japanese bunching onions. And this container is about the size of a wine barrel. And so I keep it going. And when I harvest, see, there's still some usable onion here for green onions. And I just cut it right about here near the soil line and let the roots stay in the ground, and they regrow very quickly from there. So this is my perpetual bunching onions pot. And so I never have to buy green onions. So this is something I suggest to folks. I do pull it against the house when it gets really cold, and I cover it. What is it? We have some old fabric shower curtains, and I actually just drape those over to hold the warmth and protect them from the cold wind. Let's see, what's next? Oh, this is what my vegetable garden looks like right now. I haven't gone through and cleaned up the debris that was hanging on the vines. These are milk cartons that I cut the tops and bottoms off because this was cucumbers, and I actually seed my cucumbers out in the garden. And if I didn't have something to hide the seedlings from the rabbits would eat the tops of the seedlings off. But once they get high enough to, come out of the top of the jug, the rabbits don't really seem interested in them. But they will nip those little seedlings off. And I just thought this is pretty. It's also a reminder I shouldn't let garlic chives go to seed, because even this late in the season, you can see all this seed here. So this year, I'm going to have garlic chives popping up all over the place. And I thought these were pretty. This is the seed head of hardy begonias. And if I broke them open, the seeds inside are very tiny. They're a little bit big. They're like smaller than sand grains usually are. And so they're really interesting. And how many of you had visitors during the snow? So we had a group of cardinals that decided to come in, and Lee Cheek reminded me, she said she's got a bit of getting over a cold. So she said if she started coughing, she would turn her camera off. Yeah. But you were talking about the backyard bird count.
Yes, the backyard bird count. Yes, it started yesterday and it goes through Monday.
And what is it?
Yeah. It is the big backyard bird count is done by Cornell University and ebird.org to create a good research data for how birds are migrating. And so you take about 15 minutes, and it's the minimum time. And you count the birds that you see in your yard or on your on your seeds spots or whatever.
Mhm.
And then you record that data
Okay.
and,
And
online, and it helps them.
okay. And isn't it like you record the biggest group you see, something like that?
Well, you record everything you see.
Yeah, but if I see, right now I'm seeing like 5 cardinals here,
Uh-huh. Right.
but I don't, every time I look out, I don't record 5 cardinals, do I?
Right. No.
Okay, so I would just record the 5 cardinals. Or if
Yeah.
I saw a group of 6, I would just record 6 cardinals for
So
that day.
when I have my seed of containers out there, I note who's coming in, you know,
Mhm.
and record them. And I've got a nice spreadsheet that I can check them off quickly as they come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 So are you just recording the species of birds that come
Yeah.
in,
Uh-huh.
or how many, or both?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have signed up to do it several times, and I'm really bad at doing things like that. And so
Yeah.
I haven't signed up this year.
Yeah. I didn't sign up. I just do it. And then I go record the data.
Yeah. And I also noticed my, I've got a couple birdhouses out, and I
Oh,
noticed the
bluebirds. Yeah.
bluebirds, and they were in and out of it like a lot. So it makes me wonder if they're either building their nest or have chicks already. So that's really cool. Okay, I think the next slide we move into the topic of seed starting. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment, just to talk about some general stuff. With seed starting, you really um, there are a few things you need to know. They're not hard things, but they're important things. And they're things you don't know when you're a beginning gardener. One of the concepts that One of the things I see a lot of people doing is, they'll start all their seeds at one time, and they'll start everything inside under lights. And then there's a level of disappointment because that doesn't really work. The seeds are sort of in different categories, and I'm going to go back to this chart here if I can find the right button to push. And there we go. So this is one of the things you need to know. There are plants that you start early to put in the early spring or even late winter before the weather gets hot. And so we call those cool season plants. And you'll also see a lot of those that you plant late summer to harvest in the fall. And then there's the whole set of plants that want hot weather. And so in the cool season plants, in both types, there are things that like to be started by what we call direct seeding. That's just putting the seed in the ground. And then there are ones that are best started by growing or purchasing transplants, already started plants. So, like if you were going to try to put broccoli seed in the ground, it would probably be very difficult to actually get a harvest in our climate. Places that have a really mild winter, really mild summer, you might be able to do it, but that's not East Tennessee. And so there so some of these that are on this list here that are spring plants, or they call them early to mid-spring planted vegetables for late spring or early summer harvest, so before it gets really hot. So these are the ones that we would be thinking about starting now. And then these ones are a little bit later. And the next chart sort of shows what you need to know about figuring out when to start them. So, the cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, if you're going to start them as transplants, you need to start the seed in a container 5 to 7 weeks before it's time to plant them out. And when they're planting out, the temperatures need to be somewhere in the 50s. And so right now we're a bit cold for that. Now people do help that along with covering them. So if you wanted to plant your broccoli in a couple weeks, I know people who've started their broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage plants already. And so anytime now you could start those inside. And let's see, I'm going to go to another picture that's further in here. Let's see, where am I going? Okay, and so you would start it in some sort of container. The things that are important about the container is it's got to have drainage holes so that you can water it, and you want to make sure you don't water it too much. You want to keep them damp, but not sodden. You also don't want to use garden soil because there's too many microorganisms in the garden soil that can attack your seeds as they're trying to sprout. If you purchase a seed starting mix, the other thing you need to know is seedlings do not need any nutrition or fertilizer to sprout. But once they've sprouted, then if your seed starting mix doesn't have any fertility to it, and if you buy it, it will say something on the bag about that. You need to add them, but I would do, a very like half strength liquid fertilizer. If you're
Amy,
doing anything.
can I
Yes,
add to
go
that?
ahead, Toby.
Yeah, I would in my experience,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I have in the past bought a seed starting mix,
Mm-hmm.
and the seed starting mix crusts over because it actually has too much soil in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I really prefer like coconut coir or something that's
Mm-hmm.
really fine. And then
Yes.
I will put some worm castings I'll mix in there so that once the seed does germinate and does start growing, there is some uh you know
Fertility.
fertility. Yeah, sorry
Yeah.
about that. But be careful on the seed starting mix you choose because there are
Mm-hmm.
ones that say it's seed starting and then you get it going. And as you water your plants, it gets crusty and it makes it hard
Yeah.
for those little seedlings to pop through. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
always, I don't know, we can't always believe like everything we hear in marketing. I'm
Right.
just say that.
Yeah.
So
And some of the seed starting mixes are made for
potting up.
commercial type situations where they're misting
Yeah,
the
or they're
trays.
they're
Yeah.
potting up or whatever.
Yeah.
So just lean towards like something super fine,
Mm-hmm.
and coconut coir is perfect for that.
Yeah. And coconut coir, okay, peat moss, if it gets dry, it becomes hydrophobic. It won't suck up moisture easily. But I've noticed that cocoa coir does not do that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been my favorite. There's like a
mm-hmm.
Jiffy seed mix that's 100% that, and
Yeah.
yeah. But it's just sometimes I bought it in the past. I've ordered online or whatever just because I'm in a hurry. And sometimes if you wait till the bitter end, all the stuff's gone from the store, and you're like, all right, I'm going to order online, and it looks good, and then I get it, and I'm like, oh, this kind of looks more like potting mix than seed starting mix.
Mm-hmm.
Potting mix is like usually nice and like chocolate cake looking. And
Yeah.
seed starting mix is more powdery and brown. They look different.
Yeah. Well, in this, you can see the light flecks in it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that's very common with the seed starting mix. This is what you're seeing is actually vermiculite,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is what is it? It's basically they heat up rock and it breaks up into little pieces.
Yeah, I used to think when I was early into gardening, I used to think it was chunks of like styrofoam.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and that the perlite, it looks more like the styrofoam. And
Yeah,
but if you touch it, it's rock. It's hard.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Vermiculite is kind of like flatter and
It's like it feels like
chips.
flakes of mica
Yeah, exactly.
is what it looks like to me.
Yeah,
I don't have,
exactly.
wait, I might have some here.
Yeah, I've put vermiculite in my beds
Here it
to
is. Here's
loosen up
vermiculite.
the
Wait, let me stop sharing so the pictures are bigger. Okay, so here's vermiculite. And so it's a real light
yeah,
stuff. And then I've probably got some, yeah, I've got some perlite. And this is perlite.
yeah,
So it sort of looks like styrofoam, but can you hear it?
yeah.
It
And
doesn't
so,
sound like styrofoam.
Are there any
Amy, Amy, do you
Yeah,
mix your own potting, your own seed starting mix
I
then?
actually do. Well, in recent years, I've taken to buying the Jiffy seed starting mix, which is really inexpensive, and I'll add some worm castings to that because I
Yeah,
find
that's what I
it is
do.
just too light by itself and dries out too quickly.
Yeah.
So that's been an inexpensive solution for seed starting. So that's what I've used recently. I used to do a mixture of, for seed starting, I would do vermiculite. I would do some of my garden compost that I had sterilized. So I'd
Yeah.
heat treated it to make it sterile and sifted it, and some worm castings and some cocoa coir that I'd sifted.
Yeah.
But it's just, I can get that mixture of vermiculite, a little bit of composted material, and the cocoa coir in the Jiffy seed starting mix.
Yeah.
So I let them do that part.
Yeah. The other thing to remember too is we're trying to keep sterile because these
Hmm.
are baby seedlings and they're very fragile at the beginning. Don't
Yeah.
forget if you're using like old trays, or any,
Hmm.
old like you can use anything to do seed starting. Just make sure you sterilize it. Throw it in the
Yeah.
dishwasher and sterilize the pots as well.
Right. And I notice we've got a few people watching. If you have any questions about seed starting or other garden questions, feel free to ask them because that's what we're here for. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again if I can get it to work. Um, oftentimes when you're first starting, you cover your plants to hold the moisture. And it is really important when you see them starting to sprout to take the cover off.
Yeah.
So this is a situation where I'm probably going to move. I probably did move some of these. Okay, I was doing essentially a germination test on a bunch of different lettuces. And so some of them are not sprouted yet. And then some of them are, like this one here. If I zoom in, you can just barely see there's little roots
Oh
coming
yeah.
out the
Yeah.
bottom there. So that has started to germinate. So that needs to not be under the cover anymore. So I would take the cover off at that point.
And Amy, why
Yeah.
does it not want to be under the cover anymore?
Um, you can actually have mold issues and
Mm-hmm.
other problems if you don't have airflow.
Yeah.
Okay, so, as you're going forward, you have them uncovered, you have lights. This doesn't show where the lights are too well, but you can see the different seedlings. And so there's some lettuces and there's some um, basils. This is probably a different ear. And then there's some atobes. You can see how close the lights are.
Yeah, those are my onion
Hmm.
cells.
Yeah. And so you really do, if you're using lights, unless they are really pretty high-powered greenhouse lights, you really need to have your lights close to your plants. What you'll see if you don't have your lights close enough, do you see how short these are growing? They're growing really tight and short. What you'll see if you're light is too far away is the plant will stretch out, reaching toward the light.
Yeah, I
And
find
then,
that they get really leggy if
hmm
I found like my tomato plants would do that really
hmm
easily.
yeah,
If I didn't have it down there far enough.
right. Another thing that can cause that is too much fertilizer.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you add worm castings, you're probably going to be waiting a while before you add any kind of fertilizer. And it's usually easier to add fertilizer to the water that you're using. Just do it like a quarter strength or even, half strength or a quarter strength. I like to, so what I'll do is I'll start my seedlings in a mass pot like this, and then I'll separate them out into individual cells. Because once you have, I can handle them once they have their first true leaves. Now, these are the seed leaves right here. And these leaves that are coming in the center are the seed leaves. And on these lettuces, I can see all these lettuces have at least one set of true leaves. So you handle them by the leaves, not the stems. Because if you break the stems off, the plant is gone. And so I actually transplant them into a potting mix that has a little more fertility in it. Usually it is a composted cow manure in what I use, but it's only about 15% of the mix. And I wish I had a good way of telling you on the fertility, but if you're seeing all your plants be extremely light green and not really growing, liquid fertilizers are the easiest to add. And there's organic versions and there's synthetic versions that both work really well. Look at the directions, and I would dilute it by at least half for seedlings. Okay. And then this is another way to water Toby. Yes.
Amy, speaking of fertilization,
Mm-hmm.
what do you, let's say you're putting a diluted soluble fertilizer that's it's been diluted down so it doesn't you know, seedlings can't handle too much. How often do you recommend folks fertilize? Is it once they emerge, it's once, or is it every week, or is it
I would do every week a
okay?
dilute fertilizer.
Good.
If you're seeing signs of them becoming leggy and your light is correct, if they're starting to stretch out, um, I would reduce that frequency. Another thing that's important to have is some sort of a fan moving the air.
Yeah, I put a little
hmm
fan at the end, just on
hmm
low, and it
Yeah,
makes them stronger when
it definitely. Yeah. So a fan moving air will make your plants stronger. And some people actually recommend brushing your hand over your plants gently
yeah.
to just give them a little, what is it, stress on their stems. Not where you're going to break them, but where you're just going to sort of imitate the natural conditions that they'll be in, where they'll
So
have, yeah.
Amy, one other question.
hmm
Once the seedlings emerge, if you're like me, you don't trust the seed and you put too many seeds in.
Yeah,
Or you don't know your seed pack, you don't know the viability, you haven't tested it,
right.
so you're overseeding because you're like, you know what, I'm probably only going to get half to germinate.
hmm
When's a good time to thin that out? And
Right.
when I thin out, I take scissors and just cut the top off instead of trying to pull because that will disturb all of
Yeah.
the roots. So I'll just clip off the top with
hmm
teeny tiny scissors. But when do you recommend folk do that?
Okay, there's a couple different ways of handling it. What I usually do is I wait until okay. So when a plant germinates, the first leaves it puts out are its seed leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then it puts out another set. So the seed leaves will go this direction, and then the true leaves will be this direction, usually. Um, when it's got its first set of true leaves and they're big enough for me to hold them gently. And as years have gone out by, I can handle smaller seedlings than I used to. I will gently either dump that whole container and tease them apart at that point and then reset them one in a usually about a 2-inch pot is what I'll move to. And so I will pot them up there at the same depth that they were growing. And that's how the nurseries do most of the transplants that you see. They'll sprout them in a mass container and then they'll separate them out
Like
into
pricking out,
individual.
pricking out.
Yeah, pricking out.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to leave as much soil attached to the roots as you can so that there's less stress. But it is a thing that you get better with practice, and most plants are way more durable than you think they should be. That's where I'm going to actually go back to one of the charts because it really does show. Um,
They make a tool too. It's a
mhm,
little plastic, teeny
I've got
tiny
one.
little, looks like a little teeny fork, and you can
yeah,
prick stuff out. I
right.
I I usually am not going to have enough room for if I were to try to prick out every single additional, I should get
Yeah.
smart and not plant so many seeds. But I'll just clip them off and thin them out that way because I know for a
hmm
fact. And Amy, you give away a lot of seedlings as
I
well.
give away a lot of season. Let me go get my favorite pricking out tool. You'll laugh.
Because Margot, I think you recommended to me like a few years ago online, you can buy these little sets of, and they're not very expensive at all. And they have the little pricking out tool, they have the this and that, they have the little teeny like shovel, they have all the
hmm
things. And
That's
so,
exactly where I got my little thinning tool. Yeah.
Okay, this is my favorite pricking out tool.
oh, a spoon.
A spoon, and I'll use the back of it. I mean, this
Yeah,
is a really cheap, like Sam's by 36 of them spoon, but
yeah,
it's thin. Do you see how
yeah,
thin that is?
yeah.
And so
I
I
have a
can put
little
it,
plastic fork thing.
yeah, so I can put it in and use it like a mini scoop, or if I'm
Yeah,
putting a bigger amount, I can use the
yeah,
other end. And
yeah.
they're so available.
The
And
other tool I love is
yeah,
the spray. I have a spray bottle that mists.
hmm
Like I just mist things like early
yeah,
on because if you try to pour, the water is gonna move the soil. If you try to
good.
pour water from the top, it's gonna move the soil and disrupt the
Let me
the
adjust this.
seedlings, and then sometimes the roots start showing, and then you got problems. So
Let
that
me
and I'll
watch
tell
this.
everybody, I will say
Yeah.
this. If you're watching and you're new to seed starting, you will probably not get it right first time around. I've done seed
hmm
starting. The only reason I know all of these things is because I've made all of the mistakes. And before we went on, I said
Yeah.
the two mistakes I make is watering too much and watering not enough with seedlings. I
Uh-huh.
mean, seriously.
Yep. Okay, so I
So
was going to show this chart. Oh, did someone else have something?
I was going to say, have y'all covered damping off very thoroughly in what it looks like? Because that was something I experienced a lot when I was starting, and it's so easy to have happen.
Oh, yeah. And that is one of the things that happens when damping off is a disease. It's a microorganism that can, that's one of the reasons we suggest do not use garden soil. Um, it can be, so diseases have to have the microorganism, they have to have favorable conditions, and they have to have a plant that's susceptible. Most seedlings are susceptible to damping off, and but having a lot of moisture um, can encourage it, and having
yes.
reduced, not very much air movement. So damping off, you'll have your little seedling coming up nice and pretty, and then a space in here on the stem will just go thin and look like it's rotting, and it'll fall over.
Yeah, it'll be like, whoop.
And that's damping off. And so that will happen a lot of times if you leave the cover on too long, is the
Yeah.
times I've seen it mostly. They have actually found, we've both talked about worm castings. They have apparently have microorganisms in there that help prevent damping off.
Mm.
And so since I started using worm castings as part of my seed starting mix, I don't think I've ever had damping off. Now, results might vary. That's just my personal experience, but I also am very careful about removing the cover once the seeds have germinated. So that's another factor. Okay, so, we were talking about planting things in mass and then dividing them. So most of these things that are on this list that's marked that you can transplant them, their roots are such that you can move them once they've germinated. A lot of these plants on this side of the list don't like their roots disturbed too much. And as you can see, some of them can go either way. So
Yeah.
like broccoli is very often mass planted and then divided out into individual containers when it started in the nursery. Lettuces are the same thing. And so, that's a thing we can do at home if you want to start your own transplants. Now,
Yeah,
I would,
I would also say if you are choosing to start indoors, some of those more uh, fragile or plants that don't like disturbed, just put them in a big enough starting
Mhm.
pot. And, if you've got a few extras that go up, just cut the ones you don't want off and let it grow in that pot so that when you do
Yes.
transplant it, you've got a lot of soil around it and you can protect it better.
Hmm. Yeah, the other thing to be aware of is I'll see people starting like cucumber and squash plants inside several weeks before our last frost date. But if you look here, you only want your cucumber and squash seeds to grow 2 to 3 weeks at most
Right.
in a container. And so if you've started them a couple weeks before frost and they want warm soil, your plants will be overgrown, and overgrown plants are weaker.
I put in the chat both the warm season and cool season guides.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean you should be, I put those in so you have them just for our
Hmm.
viewers. That doesn't mean you should be planting warm season seedlings right now.
Right.
You have to work backwards.
Hmm.
And do you want to talk about so anyway, I just wanted to point that out that I'm putting them in
Yeah,
there for your, for your planning purposes, but right now it's really we're in the cool season vegetable starting mode, not the warm season. Um
right.
yeah, what
And
was I going to ask
what is
you?
it? This is, I'm going to show another chart, and it is from the publication that's Vegetable Garden Planning. And so as you
Mhm,
look here, it gives dates for spring planting and fall planting for each
mhm,
vegetable.
And
mhm.
we've got a link to that early on in the stream of
Right.
resources.
Yeah, we
And
have tons of resources.
it's what all these charts that I'm showing are from.
Amy, do you want to touch on
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe you already have a photo of this. I don't remember if you had it or not. But do you want to talk about heat maps or heat mats for a minute?
Oh yeah, let's talk about heat mats. But this is a really valuable to give you sort of time frames of when to plant.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Um,
reason I brought that heat maps up was because some of these charts will tell you the ideal
Germination
heat,
temperature.
yeah, germination temperatures.
Yeah. Um, Heat mats, some things like the temperature to be really warm when they're germinating, when they're starting, getting going.
Usually warm season veggies, by the way.
Right. Um, and so a heat mat can be helpful for getting them going.
Yeah.
But you usually want to, once they're germinated, just like that cover that you put over, you want to take them off the heat once they germinate.
Yeah.
Being too warm is another thing that can encourage your plants to get real stretched out and leggy.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's not what you want. You want a tight, bushy plant to transplant.
And I would say this is one of the reasons you want your seeds in separate little containers
Mm-hmm.
instead of one big one, because some seeds, if you look at the
Yeah,
charts, the seeds germinate in different time frames. So some seeds
right.
germinate, it takes 2 weeks, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, is this seed dead? What's going on? So
Right.
you want to be able to, you have a container with a heat mat under
Mm-hmm.
it. Anything that's germinating, you're opening up the lid, you're moving it to a different
Right.
place where there's not a heat map. So it's good to get organized with separate
Mm-hmm.
pot and make sure you're labeling, like your photos, Amy, are showing like we have labels in each pot,
Yes.
each mini pot. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of shuffling that goes on that you need to think about when you're seed starting, that you're gonna probably be shuffling
Mm-hmm.
around the separate plants a little bit.
Yeah. And if it's your first year gardening, buy your transplants.
Yeah,
For the things that need transplanted, buy your transplants. Because
yeah,
there's just so much to learn those first couple years. I think I started growing my own transplants probably about 3 years into gardening
yeah,
because I'd heard about varieties that weren't available. And that is why I started growing my own transplants.
yeah.
I wanted to try some, I think it was tomato varieties that you could not buy as transplants around here. What's interesting is you can get those now,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
you
not
know,
everything.
but you can't get everything. It's like my favorite paste tomato is a hybrid called Pompeii, and you cannot find that from transplants here.
Yeah,
And actually, there's not very many places that even carry the seed,
yeah, yeah.
but it is my favorite paste tomato. And so if I'm going to grow it, I have to start it from seed.
And I'll tell you, part of
Mhm.
the joy of seed starting for
Mhm.
me is the miracle of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The miracle that this tiny little unassuming little thing can go in the ground, or
Mhm.
not in the ground, in your soil, and you can start growing. And if you save seeds, and we're not talking about seed
Mhm.
state saving today, but if you save seeds, once you start, you will not, from, well, depending on the seeds, there's some that are hard to
Yeah.
save, but a lot of plants you can save your seeds from your plants and you're pretty much good to
Right.
go. It is a cost saving measure. Gardening is not
Mhm.
free, but there are ways to save money.
Yeah.
The one other thing I might mention as we talk about heat maps, and often, we get the idea that, oh, I'm just going to put these pots in my windowsill and these
Mhm.
plants are going to, seedlings are going to go to town and that's all I need to do. Not really. There is a little bit of, we've been talking about all the things you got to do. There's a little bit more to it. I mean, you
Mhm.
might, if
Right.
it's not, if it's a plant that doesn't, a seedling that germinates in very low temperature and your
Mhm.
house is, in the 70s or upper 60s, like you might get some lettuces
Mhm.
germinating, herbs might germinate.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a controlled environment, at least in
Mhm.
that you have a nursery going
Right.
for your seedlings.
Yeah. The other thing that people run into today is a lot of windows have UV coatings on them,
They
and
do,
they
yeah.
block
Mm.
the kind of light that the plants need.
And
And
even
so,
without UV
yeah.
coating, our houses, the amount of light. I was watching a training
Mhm.
that Extension was doing on growing in small spaces, and one of their trainings was on
Mhm.
how much light actually gets into your house, because they were talking about growing
Right.
indoor plants. It is radically different.
Mhm.
And I've started plants inside, but my kitchen table, but I have a lamp down there as well. I'm not
Mhm.
relying on like the light from the window or the light from the
Right.
overhead.
You're supplementing.
You're gonna roll a dice and you're gonna be very lucky if you get strong
Mhm.
seedlings that way.
Yeah.
And speaking of lighting in small spaces, I live in a tiny house. I don't have a good surface where I can
Mhm.
suspend a light. And a lot of the light systems you see, the light is suspended and you lower it and you raise it.
Mhm.
But for my orchids, I'm using red and blue lights on tripods. And
Mhm.
I do have a fairly low wall where I can balance a seed tray. And so
Uh-huh.
I'm going to start using the tripods, and you can raise and lower those, so that's great. And that solves the
Yeah.
need of finding a place where you can suspend
Mhm.
a light. You can also just have one beside that you raise and lower.
Uh-huh.
You
And
can
Jake is
also
good with that.
You can also
Yeah.
raise and lower underneath the seed
Mhm.
trays. Like you could put
Right.
books under your seed trays, and like as
Mhm.
they grow, you can take the book out, even if the light's in
Yeah.
the same spot. The trays are going down,
Oh,
and the light
books and water. That makes me scared.
that makes you what? Books
Scared.
and
Books and
water. Oh,
water.
well, whatever,
Yeah.
or old whatever. Anyway, you
What is
get
it
my
if you had an
drift.
old
You
telephone
can
book
raise and
that
lower the light, but you can also
yeah.
raise and lower the trays.
How
Right.
about
That's
with
my point.
Amazon
You could put
boxes,
your books
maybe?
in plastic bags. Yeah.
There
Yeah,
you
that's
go.
good. Okay. And then I wanted to share Lee sent some pictures for our slideshow about some seed starting she's done recently.
Hey, Amy, did you show the capillary mats and all that yet?
Now I guess we'll get to that in a minute. But I
Okay,
want to
good,
show Lee's
good.
seed starting, which is a little bit different tactic than we've been talking about.
Right. So mine's outside and it's cold season vegetables. This is my kale
Go, girl.
that is going, yeah. And you can see this is my little bed that I set up. And next to it I have a plastic container
Mhm.
that I put over the top of it, especially in the evenings when it's been,
Mhm.
cool temperatures.
Yeah.
Or if the day temperature is below uh, 40 degrees. I keep it
Mhm.
on all day.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the seedling picture
Yeah,
because you can see these
there's
little guys
frost.
are bright green, don't seem to be having a problem, even though they are frosted.
Yep,
And some plants can handle that. If that were a basil plant, it would be black and dead.
yep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But kale plants can take that kind of
Kale
temperature.
must germinate in the time.
Hmm.
Lee, how long did it take these seedlings to come up to germinate for you to see them?
They've been this a size for about 3 weeks, and
Well,
it took them a month to germinate.
yeah,
It was
so
like,
there you go.
yeah,
If they
yeah,
were in the ideal germination range of heat, then they would have come up faster.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Brenda
Brent,
has a comment about
yeah.
also heat in windowsills
Hmm.
and her plants burning.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
she says when she puts plants in the windowsill, even if she's reading the right place to put them, they burn.
Mhm.
I would say if they burn, that's not the right place to put them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's either, the sun is just too intense in the window you're in. That's probably what's going on. And so you might need to put like a sheer curtain there if they burn.
And also be mindful of
Yeah,
which direction the windows face. West would be
yeah.
really hard, and so would south maybe,
Hmm.
but east might work.
Yeah. I mean, some of my best African violets were raised in a west-facing window with a sheer curtain on it.
Yeah.
But that moderated the light enough. Yeah, if they burn, I would, either move them further away from the light. The other thing is, a lot of times you have air vents that are near windows. And so if they're getting blown on by the air vent with the heat, that can actually dry out plants,
Yeah.
and then they're more prone to burn.
Guys,
So,
looking at Lee's slide here,
yeah.
one thing that none of us has touched upon is winter sowing, which
Hmm.
really gained a lot of attention maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And so, if you want to experiment with that and people have success with it, Google winter sowing, and I'll put a
Yes.
resource in about that.
Yeah, and that's generally used for perennial plants and very often native plants. A lot of perennial plants, they're plants that come back year after year. Most of our vegetables are what's called annuals, and they just live 1 year. Um, but the perennial
And,
plants,
and my kale has
yeah,
lived as long as 3 years.
right, it can. But
Yeah.
it can complete its life cycle in 1 year. You know, go from seed to seed again. But yeah, I will admit kale sometimes will do a couple years, especially if you cut it off and don't let it make seed. But the perennial plants, a lot of the native plants in particular, need a period of cool weather. And so I know there's charts on Prairie Moon Seeds on their website that tell you like how much chill time, cold weather a certain seed will need. And some of them need 30 days, a minimum of 30 days. Some need a minimum of 60 days, and some need 90 days or more of cool weather. And so we probably still have, if you're looking at the ones that say 30 days, you probably could sow those outside now or in containers outside now. A lot of people use milk jugs and they make holes in the bottom and they cut them open, put potting mix or soil, because they're native plants, you can use soil for those, and set them outside with the lid off so they don't get too hot. And so they'll actually cut them open and then you tape them back together. If you're interested in knowing more about that, I think on the Knox County Master Gardener website we have a winter sowing video.
And also, Margot put a nice resource
Oh, good. Yeah.
in the
Yeah. I mean,
comments.
it's not something people very often do for vegetables. Now, I would call this, sowing the kale now more as a cool season vegetable technique, more than what's called winter sowing. But I mean, it's a valid way of doing things and it works.
That's what happens in nature, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely sown kale in the winter. That's the main one. Also cilantro. Most people don't know that it's actually a cool season herb and will go to seed very quickly in the summer. I have had it sprout out in my garden and survive single-digit temperatures as seedlings.
Yeah.
It is a very tough cool season herb. Oh, there's another picture of it covered. I think I had your picture sort of backwards.
And I
Oh,
think that
that's
their
me.
interest in winter sowing. I am Kathy Carpenter.
I'm trying to stop it.
Okay.
The term winter
It was
sowing
autoplay.
is credited.
Oh no. Okay. Wait. She must have I bet she was trying to hit mute and accidentally left the meeting.
She'll be back.
She'll be back. Okay, we've seen these ones already. And then now let's go to the capillary mats. Because Toby, you were talking about water,
Yes.
too much or too little. And this is one of the things that you can use.
Yeah, and you can buy capillary mat trays, or you can buy the capillary mat itself and use like styrofoam or blocks or whatever, and create the felt. It's like a felt kind of, not very expensive. The trays, of course, are more expensive, the full kits. But the reason I started using capillary mats, it was because I'm so busy and I'm traveling and I'm at work and I'm not out there in my garage, checking the soil moisture all the time.
Right.
And so the capillary mats, I can pour in a bunch of water in the bottom of the tray and it will the plants actually pull up the water. So you're not watering from above at all.
Yeah.
Except
only
when you
argument
first
I
get them
have with
established.
I have an argument with this diagram. Can anyone
Okay.
guess what it is?
Oh, the lid.
The
Yeah.
lid. I mean, these plants are pretty well developed and they still have the lid on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a setup for damping off and other problems.
And mold.
Yeah.
You get
So,
fuzzy mold going.
yeah, I would have taken that off a fair bit before then. And then here's the Toby's actual mat here.
Yeah.
And that's the
And
last
I
of the
love these.
slideshow.
If you're busy, I like I said, I bought the kits, like the full setup. I've also made extras. I ordered extra felt. The other
Yeah.
thing to note is that you do have to replace, every few years you need to replace the capillary mat. So even if you
Mhm.
bought the whole setup, you'll have to replace that mat on the top because what happens is the plants grow into it, and
Oh, okay.
because you're putting pots with holes in them, and sometimes
Mhm.
the roots grow into it and it gets clogged up, and then the capillary function doesn't work as well as it should. So, but you're
Yeah.
just refilling the below, and you can put like, almost like a gallon of water underneath, and then the plants are just pulling up what they need. So
Mhm.
it is impossible to overwater because the plants are deciding how much that water they want.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have never used those. What is it? I have a way of doing things that's worked, and so I'm not
Yeah.
inclined to change it. And that's one thing. There's science to gardening, but there's also an art to it too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's many different ways to accomplish the same things. And
Mm-hmm.
so different gardeners will will use different techniques.
Yeah.
It's like for me, I use, the 1020 trays, and the ones I use have pretty deep ridges on them. And I could probably show you a picture that shows that. Yeah, this one shows it. Um, they have pretty deep ridges on them. And what I've found is if I let the tops of the soil get a little dry, if I put a quart of water in here, it just comes to the bottom of the pots and it's about perfect,
Uh-huh.
for watering. And so then the containers, they'll soak up that moisture. And then oftentimes the plants will put a little bit of root down further and they'll be able to pull the moisture from these ridges,
Yeah.
but it
I
doesn't keep
used
them too wet.
and you try stuff out. Like I used to do soil
Mhm.
blocking.
Yes.
Like they have these tools, and I don't have one with me right now, but they have tools where you can create soil blocks,
Hmm.
and you can put soil blocks directly on like a capillary mat, for example, or a
Yeah.
bunch of soil blocks in a milk carton that's on its side and the top cut off. And I used to do that early on, and in the end, it didn't really have any real benefit, for me in the
Right.
long run. And so it just kind of, then I had to move things, and then the soil blocks would fall
Hmm.
apart and blah, 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 blah. So, after a while, I was like, what? I don't need the soil blocks. I'm going to do this in little pots.
Right.
Similarly, I started using the tiny soil cells for the onion starts,
Hmm.
because I actually do want them to be kind of separate and let the bulbs kind of start to form and
Yeah.
make it easier for me to plant later. So sometimes we're choosing things, we try things out, they don't work, or we try
Hmm.
something new because we want to solve for something. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is, I know other people who just broadcast like all their onion seeds in one
Hmm.
giant tray like that. And I like them
Right.
like separate in separate cells. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is personal preference as well.
Very much.
So, and people will swear by their techniques, but
Hmm.
there are some key things that no matter what techniques you're choosing, they have to be right for your seeds. And it's,
Yeah.
the moisture,
Hmm.
heat, light. Those are things that have to be in the right, in the right combination to
Right.
get those strong seedlings. Should we talk about hardening off, Amy, a little bit?
Yeah, we should mention it. There's just so many bits and pieces, so that's why I say, first
Yeah.
year or two, buy your transplants. Oh, Leah's saying we got 1 minute.
Well, we got 1 minute to talk about hardening off really
Yeah.
quick.
So hardening off is okay. Let me give you a story. Um, it's been winter. You've been inside most of the winter, and we have a nice warm day, and you go outside in your t-shirt and you get sunburned. But if you did the same thing midsummer when you've been, in and out a lot, you wouldn't get sunburned.
Yeah.
That's sort of what the plants experience. They've been growing inside with very controlled light and wind and, you know, very controlled conditions. And even the strongest light is only a fraction as strong as the real sun is. So when
Yeah.
you put them outside, suddenly they can get essentially sunburnt. So hardening off is the process of getting them used to being outside. Um, so the way we like to do it is find a sort of sheltered space outside where they do get some sun, and the first day put them out for an hour. Now, if it's really windy, either put something out to block the wind or don't do it that day. Because I have definitely had young seedlings just blown over.
Yeah.
And they'll still grow, they just are a little, they get tangled in each other and it's messy. Um, okay, so that first day, 1 hour, then bring them back into the place where they've been growing. Second day, give them 2 hours. And so every day increase that by an hour. Now watch your weather. If we have a storm come through, skip that day. And then, if you've had them out for 3 hours and you skip a day, maybe that next day you just put them out 3 hours. Uh, but it's the process of getting them used to being outside. Some people speed it up a little bit by covering whatever they're putting the plants out with floating row cover, which blocks a lot of the sun and will block the wind. And so you can put them out, you can do those times a little quicker. But
And
the goal is,
I have a little rolling cart that I put
Mhm.
them all on, so I don't have to keep schlepping I put
Yeah,
them all on and I just roll them out and I roll them back in,
yep,
and then people, you can also put things in covered, sometimes people have shelves with like some
yeah,
plastic cover on it, but it's
hmm,
important, even with transplants you buy at like the big box
Yes.
store
right,
or whatever, Costco, you're buying like
hmm,
early season tomatoes and peppers. Those aren't ready for you put them in
yeah,
your garage and then you got to harden them off. So it doesn't even matter if it's your own seedlings.
right,
Just, because you will do all this work to germinate these beautiful
hmm,
seedlings, and you think you can go put them straight in the ground. The other thing I would just add, and I know we're over time,
hmm,
so we got to wrap up, but get a little thermometer and check your soil temperature
yeah,
and look at what's ideal for that particular seedling to
hmm,
go in the soil. This is particularly important for your worm season, your peppers, your
yes,
tomatoes, etc. But it's an important step. And with the way that our, weather is changing and things are kind of,
hmm,
all over the map. And then think about if we happen to have a cold snap, how are you going to protect those? And we can
yeah,
talk about this another time, but how are you going to protect those seedlings once they're in the ground?
hmm, yep. Well, what is it? We usually do more different topics than we did today, but we covered a lot of different stuff about seed starting. Hope you all enjoyed it. I know some of folks will watch this later, and so we'll put the um, all the links that we put in the comments here on Facebook in the description on the YouTube of this. We've really enjoyed being with you all today, and happy gardening. See you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone. And I've got to figure out what button I hit to stop live. I haven't done it yet.